So welcome everybody. This is Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community Call with Microsoft speakers happening every single Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. And in these calls, we always have two to three demos from Microsoft people. So that means product managers, cloud advocates, engineers, and so on. So people who are actually building the experiences or designing the experiences or responsible of driving adoption of those experiences from Microsoft side. We do have other calls for then a community demos where you learn how people are then adapting those tools and capabilities which Microsoft is rolling out. Now, my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a principal product manager for Microsoft, and I'll be your host today. Now, today we're going to go through a typical set of latest updates and news from Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. We do recap some of the links and assets, but that's because there's always new people joining on this call. So we want to make sure that everybody has those URLs and access points to get into the community. We also then cover the latest news across Microsoft blogs, so collecting from Microsoft blog, 365 blog, Power Platform blog, and all of that to a one list, which you're able to access in the recording, description of the notes in the video, or during the call, and you will get it from the chat. And then after that, we'll have a group picture with together mode. And then we move into the demos of today. So Arnav is going to start roughly 1:15 with introduction to new frontline worker pilot deployment experience in Microsoft Teams, really cool capabilities for frontline workers. Then Fiza is going to continue with MCP with declarative agents on Copilot using M365 Agent Toolkit. Super powerful capabilities and really cool setup as well. And then the last demo will be done by me on controlling SPFx extension command visibility in document libraries. Super complicated title, which I still need to a bit massage before we publish that as a video. But technically, we're rolling out a new document library experience, and you are able to control what kind of buttons and actions are visible in the toolbar within that experience, including your potential SPFx extensions. So I'm going to show all of that in practice, how you can adjust those document library experiences within SharePoint or within Microsoft lists. Well, it's not a Microsoft list because it's library, so it's in SharePoint. Anyway, let's move on. We do have a lot of assets and URLs and capabilities available for you to get started within the community. First of all of these recordings on the video recordings are getting published in Microsoft Community Learning Video YouTube channel. And in that channel, we publish a video at least every single business day. AKMS Community YouTube is the location for that. We do have our LinkedIn page and a group for discussions and updates. Really easy way to follow up on what's happening. Also including agendas and all of that is getting published over there. We do have open source assets available in GitHub, a lot of them, but it might be a bit difficult to find the relevant sample for you because there's so many repos and repositories in the GitHub. We do have our sample galleries, which are really intended to make it super easy to find the relevant sample for you. A lot of URLs to remember. Luckily, it is only one or two. You can up to your preference. So AKMS Community Home or Community MS. Both of those are redirecting to the same location, so you're able to find all of the assets and calls and everything else from a one centralized location. Now, regarding those calls, we do have a lot of them. So every single Tuesday, we have this call, which is happening 8 a.m. Pacific time with Microsoft presenters. So Microsoft people explaining you the latest and greatest across the different Power Platform and Microsoft 365 capabilities. Now, on top of this, we execute every single week also the Microsoft 365 Power Platform community call. And this is with community demos and really cool setup. So community shows how they're adapting the Microsoft tools in their best way. So what are you building and all of that. On top of that, we do have Power Platform monthly community call happening actually this week. So once a month, third Wednesday in every single month, which is this week. And that is with community demos, really cool show as well. And then Office Add-ins monthly community call is with Microsoft demos. Now you can see these calls and quite a lot of other calls as well at the AKMS community calls URL, because there are other calls available for you to join. So if you're interested, for example, Dynamics or business apps or other CRM, there are separate calls for those sections as well. So you can definitely see all of those at AKMS community calls URL. For a lot of these calls, we also publish the agenda in Meetup Advanced, so you can decide, do you want to actually see the call live and ask questions in the chat, or do you want to check the recording afterwards? So Meetup is a great service, so you will actually get the agenda sent to you within your email advance, so you can actually see, oh, these are the things what we're going to talk about next week. So again, you can make a decision, are you going to be there live or not? For a lot of these calls, like mentioned, we do welcome community demos and great opportunity of practicing your demo skills or getting those MVP renewal points, or if you're interested in getting an MVP status for yourself. And we do welcome a different kind of demos as well. So even though somebody might be thinking, well, I don't actually know any deep dive demos, I said, no, getting started demos are more than welcome. Quite often, we always tend to jump to the 400 level deep dives on these things, and majority of us actually needs the baseline capabilities, how to get started on X and Y and Z, how to achieve certain things. Whatever you're showing doesn't have to be open source, it doesn't have to be available, but we do not accept product demos within these calls. So it has to be something what you're sharing, you're learning so that everybody else actually learns from there. Not selling, but learning from the other people in the community. Now, I already mentioned our sample gallery. We already have more than 2,670 samples within here in this gallery. Super convenient location for accessing samples from Microsoft and community. They came as community samples location. As you then find a sample, you might be wondering on, how do I get started? Or maybe you have a sample, and how would I get this Power App available for anybody to actually consume? Well, that's why we have Sharing is Caring initiative. And here's David Warner, director from LA, explaining what this is all about.
Yes, Vesa, thank you so much. So, friends, Sharing is Caring is all over the map these days, actually, and we're trying to get everything coordinated. As Vesa had mentioned, it provides guidance, and that guidance is hands-on in a safe space, which means that we do not record these sessions. They are live. They are in Teams calls. And just right around the corner, less than a couple of weeks away, we've got that amazing SharePoint 2026 hackathon coming up. That's going to be fantastic. But you know what? It uses GitHub. And some people are like, I don't know what GitHub is or how it works. So we're going to help out there too. We're going to have multiple hackathon guidance sessions on how to interact, how to submit your project in case you got any questions, just so that everyone feels empowered. It's going to be before and during the event so that you can be empowered at any time. So be on the lookout for that, working with Vesa on scheduling that out and figuring all of that out. We're looking at all the times to make sure it doesn't conflict with the live streams and all that good stuff. So we want to make sure that you get the opportunity to take in everything. So be on the lookout, ak.ms/sharing is caring. And then once you do contribute, which those sessions are a contribution, you'll be recognized in our community recognition program, powered by Credly, labeled best in class for this community by Credly, not ourselves. We already knew you were awesome. They officially made it officially made it official. Yep, that's what they did because of the amazing work that you're doing. So lots of fun initiatives coming back again for 2026, all the regular badges. And of course, I mentioned, and I'll mention it again, we're bringing back the presenter badges for those on the calls. So had to try to figure out how to keep track of all those because it's not quite as automated. But be on the lookout for all you presenters. I'll be reaching out. You'll still get them for 2025. We're going to retroactively award them. So don't worry about that. Super, super, super excited. All you got to do is opt in, ak.ms/community/recognition. Do it once. We've got over 3,700 in the program now, which is amazing. So thank you, everybody. That's it. Back to you in the Finland studios.
Excellent. Thank you, LA, Helsinki taking over. Now, quick recap on the events which are happening all around the world. So TechCon 365 happening this year, one of the big ones happening first at Atlanta, starting from March 16th to 20, and that is the first one, and then Chicago and Seattle follows up later this year. TechCon365.com for additional details. In April, we'll be at the Microsoft 365 Community Conference. This time it's happening in Orlando, Florida, from April 21st to 23rd. Great conference. There's 3 different workshop days, so 2 days advanced and 1 day afterwards, and then 3 days of actual conference happening as well. M365conf.com for all of the additional details and speaker information and all of that. I will be there. Obviously, Jeff will be there, who's on a picture. Many other Microsoft people will be there on showing you the latest and greatest on Copilot and SharePoint and Teams and Power Platform and many more areas. So really cool setup this year as well. Now on European side of the house, so European Collaboration Summit is happening on 5th to 7th of May 2026 in Cologne, Germany. ECS.event is the URL, and this is actually a combination of 3 different big conferences. So this is the biggest Microsoft partner event in Europe. It's a European Collaboration Summit, a European Cloud AI Summit, and something related on Power Platform. I can't remember the name, but it's fine. I'll need to add those in my notes. But there's there's something for everybody within this conference, so don't miss out details on that one. Then we have the European Power Platform Conference happening from June 29th to July 2nd. Just a quick note on that one. I didn't notice this. We've been promoting a bit the wrong dates on this one in the call. So it has been further rescheduled to be a bit later. So June 29th to July 2nd, 2026 in beautiful Copenhagen. So awesome venue on that one. And then on top of that, there is an additional set of global events and community organized things happening all around the world. So please go to communitydays.org to see the latest and greatest, what's happening, hopefully right next to you. So you can actually meet other people in the community in person, which is super, super valuable as well. A lot of different events all around the world. So don't miss out communitydays.org. Now, related on events, we also do a lot of online events as well. And Agent Leagues is about to start, right, Paula?
Yeah, right. This is the first week of the 2 weeks of the Agents League, a community challenge where you can build your own agents and compete with the whole community to win a prize of $500 for each category, or a GitHub Copilot Pro license. You will be the community favorite or the product team picks. Today, actually, in less than 1 hour from now, there will be Battle 1 about creative apps with GitHub Copilot created agents, and there will be Chris Noring and Reynold Adolf, led by Liam Hampton from Microsoft, and they will have a battle happening 1 hour from now. So be there and watch the battle. Back to you, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you, Paolo, on that one. And then within a few weeks, we do have SharePoint 25th anniversary, which is mind-boggling. SharePoint has existed since 2001. 2nd of March 2001 was the general availability date. So we're celebrating 25th anniversary of SharePoint on a digital event on March 2nd. This will be a live streamed in YouTube, in LinkedIn, many other locations. There's going to be an AMA, Ask Us Anything session within that live stream as well. So a lot of engagement on that one. And then we're going to kickstart a worldwide SharePoint Hackathon 2026 on that day. So between March 2nd and March 16th, we actually have 6 additional live streams where we're going to go deep diving all of the latest and greatest capabilities, which were shown in the March 2nd event. And then in each of those 6 events, and there's going to be a separate AMA, so you can ask questions, you can ask guidance and all of that stuff, and submissions are welcome until March 16th. That is a Monday, March 16th, on the end of the day in Pacific time. So more details on all of this at AKMS SP at 25 URL. Now, before we actually move forward, just a reminder, let's actually enable the camera for those who are willing to be in the together mode. We're trying to set up or request people to do this nowadays a bit advanced, so the cameras are picking up and we can get better pictures in Teams. So let me actually start that one on the site, but we do have a few different slides before we go to the actual pictures. But quick recap on all of the news which is happening within the last week. So not that many news, but updates on the Microsoft 365, Microsoft 365 conference details, really cool updates on the Power Platform side of the house, like Power App Server logic enhancements and public preview on Power Apps MCP. Also guidance on SharePoint Framework and a few other things within last week. And the links are in the chat if you're interested in checking out anything of those advanced. And if you're watching the recording in the video, they will be in the video description. We also always recognize a prompt of the week. So we are collecting different kind of prompts and agent guidance and agent definitions at AKMS PMP prompt library. This is one of the easiest ways to contribute. So basically sharing what kind of prompts you are using within your day-to-day work. And this week, the prompt of the week is coming from Pranam K. And this is really about the VS Code activity. So asking the Copilot and GitHub, actually Copilot, to collect the details how I have worked within today. Now, if you're a developer, this might be really useful for you. If you're not a developer, it might not be the super interesting prompt for you. But there's a lot of other prompts which are actually getting shared at AKMS PMP prompt library. I think we are in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of prompts already there. But then it is time to go to the together mode picture, and I can see quite a few people already enabled the camera, so that is a good starting point. So we can actually see it's almost pixel perfect. We do have 191 people in the call right now, so if you're willing to enable the camera, we will capture you in the feed as well. We do apologize. We know that Teams is having every now and then a bit of a hiccups on making sure that is it capturing you even though your camera is on, you're not necessarily in the screen. That's why we are asking people to enable that a bit to advance. We do have few screens. David, somebody is trying to do a high five. So you missed it. There we go. Cool. Anyway, let's actually put the recording on and let's do some hand waving, and we're going to share that in social media. Thank you for being part of the community. Thank you for being part of this call. awesome to see familiar faces and smiling faces and new faces always in these setups as well. So cool. Great to see you in the call. Thank you for joining. And there we go. That's a really good key picture as well. Thank you for being part of this community. We'll share that one in the social media later today. Then it is time to go to the actual demos. So we're going to start with Arnav, and Arnav is going to talk about the frontline worker features in Microsoft Teams. Then I'm going to go to Fiza, and then I'm going to do the last demo of the day. And right on schedule, 1:15. So that was really good. But Arnav, I think you can share the screen. Let's check the audio.
Thank you. Can
audio
you
is
hear me?
good. Yeah, audio is really good.
Perfect.
And you can just claim the screen.
Yep. Cool.
And I can see the screen. Take it away.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm Arnav, and thank you for having me today. I'm a product manager on Microsoft Teams for frontline workers. I'm specifically focused on deployment tools to accelerate the time to value for frontline workers. And to give you guys a little bit of context, on this next slide, you'll see if it switches. There we go. Yeah, so frontline workers make up 80% of the global workforce. So when I say frontline workers, I'm talking about retail associates that you see at Target, Walmart, nurses, warehouse workers, flight attendants, baristas, and they're an underserved community. When we think about Microsoft Teams, we often think about information workers, us on desks, attending calls and meetings, but frontline workers also have a desire or have a need to communicate, collaborate, and get things done just like us. And a lot of the features and capabilities that Teams has to offer is very transferable to frontline workers. And there are specific apps catered to frontline workers as well, such as shifts, walkie-talkie, tasks, and these help enable productivity for frontline workers. So what I'd like to demo for you guys today is how organizations can pilot Teams for their frontline workers. What we've seen for most successful organizations who have adopted Teams for their frontline organization, the one thing that's common across all these customers is that they start with a pilot. They start with a small subset of their frontline workers, and pilots are very helpful because it allows customers to first, test and validate features, and then second, also make sure that Teams features actually address some of the frontline use cases and pain points. So this is a very important. And before we release this feature to, launch a pilot for your frontline workers in the Teams Admin Center, all the experiences to start and manage a pilot were really scattered and fragmented. I mean, you assign licenses on Mac, and then you come to the Teams Admin Center, and you try to assign licenses, assign app policies, and then you can also go to Teams itself to maybe start a team. So the pilot experience was not clear, and to manage a pilot, there was no experience at all. So we've brought all of that into one single experience where you can launch a pilot in just 2 minutes in the Teams Admin Center in the Frontline Hub, which is the screenshot you're seeing on the right and is also brand new since Ignite. It's under the Frontline Management tab in the Teams Admin Center, and you can see the first action that we recommend every new customer to do is start a pilot. As I mentioned before, this experience can be completed within just 2 minutes. So you just start by simply selecting your desired capabilities. You add a few members and owners, ideally frontline workers, and then it's as simple as just clicking deploy. And once you deploy your pilot, you can manage who's on that pilot. So you can manage membership. You can manage what channels should be part of the team for that pilot. You can manage app configurations for connections and communities for those users within the pilot, and also manage what pinned apps those users are going to see as well. And this is all in one single place in the Teams Admin Center. And in this fiscal, or rather in this semester, we will make it easy to extend your pilot or graduate your pilot to a full-scale deployment. So how can I test with maybe 20 users, but now scale this out to 10,000, 100,000 users in my organization? So with that, I'll get into the demo. And I've had technical difficulties trying to demo live on the Teams Admin Center, so I've recorded myself demoing it on the Teams Admin Center. So let me play this right here. Hello. Today I'll be showcasing how simple it is to deploy a pilot for your frontline workers from our brand new Frontline Hub and the Teams Admin Center. Our new pilot deployment experience is your playground to test all the capabilities Teams has to offer, validate which features are most valuable to your frontline workers, and set yourself up for a successful org-wide rollout. To get started, make sure you're a Teams admin and navigate to the Frontline Hub under the Frontline Management tab in the Teams Admin Center. Here, I can see the suggested actions that are recommended to me. Underneath in the Overview section, I can see the number of licenses I've assigned and how many pilots and frontline teams I've deployed. I can kick off a new deployment by clicking Start a New Deployment on the top right corner, or by clicking one of the suggested actions here. To start a pilot, I will click on Start a Pilot from my suggested actions. Here, I can see all the capabilities that Teams has to offer. As part of every pilot, frontline workers will automatically have the ability to communicate with each other via chat and channels. To learn more about the other capabilities offered, I can click on each of the capabilities I'm interested here on the right-hand side. For this pilot, I will include chat, channels, shifts, planner, and Viva Engage. So I will uncheck connections and walkie-talkie. Now I will click Next. Here I will add frontline workers to my pilot by clicking Add Members and searching up users on this flyout. These users will be members of the pilot and will get the selected capabilities pinned to their app bar on the Teams app once the pilot is deployed. I will click Next to move to the next step. Here I can give my pilot a name and description. I will also add a frontline manager as an owner who will have the ability to add or remove members and add channels to this pilot. Once I'm ready, I'll click Deploy. And just like that, within 2 to 3 minutes, I've deployed a pilot. I can copy this link and share it with my pilot members and owners to install Teams to get started. I can now click on View Deployment Status or Check Deployment Status, where I can now see that my pilot deployment is in progress. Once your pilot deployment is complete, you can manage membership, channels, connections, Viva Engage, and pinned apps all in one single place for each of your pilots. To do this, visit the Pilots tab on the Manage Frontline Teams page in the Teams Admin Center. Since my current deployment is in progress, I'll select a pilot that I've already deployed to edit its configurations. On the Membership tab, I can add or remove members or owners in the pilot like so. Here, on the Channels tab, I can add standard channels to the pilot team like so. Let's say I want to add a stockroom channel for delivery and stock updates. On the Connections and Viva Engage tabs, I can access documentation to configure Connections and Viva Engage respectively by clicking on either of these buttons. And on the Apps tab, I can add or remove an app and reorder the pinned apps like so. Can add connections back and simply click and drag to move it around. Can also use these buttons to move it accordingly. And once I'm ready, I can click Save. As I mentioned before, this is your playground to determine what configurations work best for your frontline workers. Continue to edit and make tweaks till you and your frontline workers feel you're making the most of what Microsoft Teams has to offer. Up next will be tools to help you understand how you can expand your pilot to a large-scale deployment. Thank you for listening. Cool. So as you could see from that demo, we have a super simple pilot experience. As I mentioned before, it was very easy, 3 steps to deploy a pilot. And then everything you could imagine about managing a pilot is included in one single location, whereas in the past, all these things were scattered all in different places. So let me go to the next slide, which gives you guys some resources to get started. I'd encourage anyone who has some tenant to try it out. You need to be a Teams admin, and you need to go to the Teams Admin Center, as I mentioned before, to access this. You can find all that information in our Learn docs. We've also blogged about this around the November timeframe last year. So if you want to check that out, the blog is linked there, and the demo video is also posted on YouTube for anyone to access. I'm not sure if there are time for questions, given that there are other demos, but I'll respond to questions in chat if that works better.
Thank you, Arnav. Yes, let's actually do the answer to questions. Any questions in the chat? There's at least one requested there, so that's good. And then let's transition to Fiza from a timing perspective. Thank you, Arnav. Really cool. Really good job. So awesome on the demo.
Thank you.
Then Fiza, I think it is your turn. Let's transition to your screen and let's check the audio. Audio is good. Excellent.
Perfect. I'll just share my screen really quickly.
Yep.
But yeah, super exciting stuff. What's going to be available for our frontline workers. And I hope now you guys can see my screen.
Yes, I can see the screen. Take it away.
Perfect. So yeah, then hello everyone. I'm Fiza Musthafa. I'm a solution engineer here at Microsoft, and today I'll just be talking about how we build declarative agents for M365 Copilot using the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. And MCP is one of the most important extensibility announcements we've had recently, because it really fundamentally changes how Copilot is now able to connect with external systems. And yeah, my goal today is very concrete. I just want to make this as clear as possible for you. So what is MCP? Why does it matter? And what and how can you build with it? So to start off, this is the agenda, and this is what we'll cover in the session today. What is MCP? How does it plug into declarative agents? A little bit into the M365 Agents Toolkit workflow and a live demo of that as well. And then also a look into what's next or what's coming. And yeah, so to start off, what is the Model Context Protocol? At a very high level, MCP is a open universal integration standard that allows your AI models, your AI systems to connect with any external systems in a very consistent manner. So instead of every AI application building a custom logic for every API out there, MCP essentially stands there to define a standard contract for how models can discover capabilities, how they can access specific data, how they can invoke some specific actions as well. And as we build more and more capable agents, MCP will only become increasingly more important to the overall conversation. So basically, just quickly explained, MCP just lets your Copilot agents plug into external systems with a standard contract, so that the integrations can become much more portable, much more secure, and also way more easier to scale. And before we get to the Copilot specific part, I want to make sure that everyone is aligned on the architecture. So especially if you're not fully aware of how it looks like under the hood. So MCP essentially, like I mentioned, standardizes how AI hosts talk to tools, data, and external systems. And here we have three main roles. So to start off, the first one is the host. This is your AI application. And in our case today, it would be M365 Copilot. And the host will decide, okay, what context is shared, what server should I connect to, and what model, what is the model even allowed to do, and how the results are also shown to the end user. And then comes the MCP client. This will be within the host, and it speaks the protocol, so to say. And then we have the MCP servers. So these are what live sort of externally, and then they expose capabilities in a structured manner. And these capabilities are expressed as tools, resources, and prompts. I just quickly elaborate on each of these. So tools are, for starters, actions that your AI can take. So as an example, it could be like creating a ticket or looking something up in a database. And tools are arguably the most important part of today's topic, because when we talk about MCP servers within M365 Copilot's declarative agents, we are mainly referring to using tools in a much more integrated way. And I think I would even argue that tools are the most important part of MCP servers. At least that's what I've seen and experienced across my customers. It could be a personal experience, of course, but yeah, I just feel like tools are increasingly more important as we talk about it. And yeah, so, but the other two are also primitives that are included in the MCP server. So that could be resources, which are read-only data, such as documents or records, or there's also prompts, which are reusable instruction templates that can standardize common tasks. But as I mentioned, for today, the main focus would be tools, so we can dive into that. And let's now connect this whole picture of MCP with the declarative agent concept. So you have declarative agents, which are M365 Copilot agents, where you can define instructions, knowledge sources, and also actions. And the key idea is that you don't really write complex orchestration code, and Copilot handles the orchestration based on what you define. And MCP fits very naturally here. So when you connect your agent to an MCP server, using a streamable HTTP URL, the agent can then go forward and discover any available tools that the MCP server has. And then you also have a very important point, especially in an enterprise context. Authentication can be handled in a very standard way, I would say, using SSO or static OAuth. And then another thing is also that MCP can work alongside any other extensibility options that you already use, such as REST APIs, for example, and this really gives you a certain level of flexibility without adding additional complexity to your existing solutions. Now, how does MCP work with M365 Copilot specifically from the user's perspective? So this is the flow that you can really expect. So the user will prompt Copilot, just send a question to it. And then behind the scenes, the declarative agent will interpret the intent and then decide whether it needs any external data or actions. And then it can use MCP for tool discovery. So essentially, MCP is that standardized layer that lets Copilot discover and invoke the right capability on an external system. And the result comes back in a structured form, and then it is presented to the user. And yeah, so just think of it as like, the user says, get my CRM data in a prompt. And then an MCP server connected to the CRM can use a tool to query the data, and that is just sent as a response to the user. And the key takeaway is that MCP just sits in the middle in a way, and it enables this flow without the user needing to do something special or going out of the way to do something. So I would say it complements the existing Copilot experience extremely well. And how do we make this work? We essentially use the M365 Agents Toolkit within VS Code or Visual Studio Code. And again, just because this happens within VS Code doesn't mean it's automatically a pro-code solution where you suddenly need to learn how to code. It's actually quite straightforward, especially in a declarative agent context. I'd even say you can do this without writing any code at all. Like, of course, you might have to customize certain values, maybe change the instructions that goes into the agent or something, but then there's no real coding involved. That's like, the heavy lifting that the toolkit really does for you. But this is the flow that we'll follow. So I'll show this in the live demo as well. You will essentially start by scaffolding a new agent within VS Code in the Agents Toolkit, and then you'll add an MCP action, and this is currently in public preview. And then you just enter your MCP server's URL, and then you can choose what tools to be your agent can have access to. And then you can also configure authentication if needed. And yeah, so you can, if your MCP server requires authentication, you can set up SSO or static OAuth 2.0 credentials. And then, yeah, the rest of it is also super straightforward. You generate and review. So the toolkit auto-generates a lot of files for you. And this includes a whole list of files, which we'll get to in the next slide. But the last thing that is super great for me is the one-click provisioning. So this is super cool for me because you don't even have to type anything in the terminal. Excuse me. You just do a one-click to provision, and it's ready for you to start debugging directly within Copilot. And yeah, so that's super interesting. And before we go to the live demo, we will just quickly have a quick view into what the toolkit auto-generates for you. And I'll just have a sip of my drink really quickly. Yeah, all better. So this is what what I mean by when I say that the agent toolkit, M365 Agents Toolkit really does a lot of the heavy lifting. It generates a schema reading, so it passes through the MCP server's tool definitions. It creates function definitions with the right parameters. So if you, for example, if a tool works within a database and it can specify what's required, like needing a partition key. Again, that's just an example, but that's what that is talking about. And authentication or auth wiring, the toolkit can handle authentication setup and credential configuration. I won't be going into this today because I will show an example that doesn't require authentication, but I will share a resource at the end of the presentation where you can look into that to see how exactly you can set that up as well. But in a very short manner, it's super straightforward how the toolkit also enables this as well. And yeah, it also generates your application's manifest JSON file. It fills your AI plugin JSON with the MCP actions and the tool description. And then we also have the declarative agent JSON file where it adds the action and the reference to the MCP server into the agent's definition. So again, there's not a lot of manual coding or like a lot of additional effort that you really need to do here. The main heavy lifting of the the code itself is really done by the toolkit, and your role is to mainly customize and to review how it fits your specific use case as closely as possible. And with that, we can actually go into the live demo. I will just switch over to VS Code here quickly. So yeah, now I have this open. I hope you can see VS Code as well. Just maybe a quick thumbs up if yes.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. That's good to know. So yeah, we are here in VS Code right now. I already have the M365 Agents Toolkit extension installed. If you don't have it, just feel free to go to the extensions, type in M365 Agents Toolkit, and then install it. And you can go ahead and follow along the flow that we're going to have right now. So to start off, I will start with create a new agent or app. And here I will choose a declarative agent. And now the important thing is to add an action. And here you directly see it. It says start with an MCP server and that it's in public preview. And I will just click on that. And now it's asking me for my MCP server URL. What I will use here is the Microsoft Learn MCP server's URL, which is publicly available. It's available and you can just look it up and you'll immediately find it. And now I'll just put where the project root folder should be. And the application name will be Microsoft Tech Expert. So that'll be my agent's name here. end in a few seconds. So we already have our agents. So the quick scaffolding that I mentioned earlier, it's already done. Again, super straightforward what is possible here. And it already has filled it out with the basic code that we kind of need for today. And what I will directly go towards is the MCP file here. So I open the .vs code file and then I go to MCP here. But maybe you're also asking like, hey, yeah, sure, you can follow along with what I'm saying right now, but what if you want to look into it later? How do you maybe follow along? It's like the instructions are also available online, but once you actually start this, you can also look into the README where it is actually also explained step by step what you need to do. So 2 things to just keep in mind there. And yeah, we'll just head to the MCP file here. And you can see here it has a start button, and I will click on that. The instructions are also written here, but yeah, I'll just quickly click on the start button, and it's telling me I have poor habits with my Git. I'll just ignore that. But yeah, our MCP server has started, and you can already see that it has discovered 3 tools that we can use. And what we'll do here is that we'll just say, okay, fetch the action from the MCP, and it's asking us where it should keep it. And we can just go ahead and click on our AI plugin JSON file. And now this is the other point that I already mentioned, where you can choose what tool your agent has access to. And this is super important because if you look at maybe the official GitHub MCP server, that thing has, I think, like 40 tools. There are other MCP servers where there's like 100 tools. And what you don't want to do is to clutter your agent's context with a bunch of tools that it doesn't need. Your agent most likely needs to do like 3 things. Don't give it like 100 things to do, because then it gets confused as to like what exactly it needs to do. If you give it a very specific scope, then it can also rely on that to make much better decisions. But here we only have 3 tools, which is, I would say, not that bad. So I'll just go ahead and select all of them. And yeah, so we will, you've seen that it's already fulfilled my AI plugin file. I'll just quickly click on provision here, and then I'll continue speaking about the code. So yeah, I'll also get back to what exactly I clicked on with provision as well. No worries about that. But you can see, so from the MCP tool, it's actually filled in our AI plugin file with the necessary functions or tools that we need out of the MCP server. So it was a few of them were like, the code sample search, and then the documentation fetch tool, and also the document search tool. It's all filled out here. And again, we didn't have to do anything aside from clicking a few buttons, which makes it super nice, really. And yeah, and then it's like, there's also a runtime definition. It also explains what functions the agent can use. And you can, if your agent required authentication, again, the toolkit would ask you what authentication you need. And then the information about that would also be here, just as an FYI, in case you're interested. And I will just maybe still quickly go through the rest of the code so you have an idea of like, what exactly it is here. Like I mentioned, the basic structure is generated by the toolkit, but you can still make it a bit more user-friendly. For example, I can say, okay, maybe I want to change the name for human to be Microsoft Tech, Microsoft Learn MCP server. That way it's a lot more clear to the user what exactly the tool is using. Or, you could just fill out with like the details that you wanted to be filled in. And then you can also look into the declarative agent JSON file, where again, like I mentioned, the action or like the MCP server is already automatically referenced by the declarative agent now, which is super cool. Again, did not have to do any heavy lifting here. So that's all like super nice and super comfortable for us to just have a very good experience when building. And obviously there are a few more like details, such as that you can, again, change a little bit more to make your agent as perfect as you envision it to be. You can add some starter prompts that you would like your users to use out of the box. And yeah, you can also customize the instruction. Here it just says you're a declarative agent created with the M365 Agent Toolkit. Answer the questions and help the user. Obviously, your agent could have much more refined instructions, and you could do what exactly it is that you need it to do. And yeah, then we also have this file that was made for us, where it just goes a little bit into how the deployed application should look like. And yeah, so that's just a quick overview into what exactly it generates for us. And I will just quickly maybe shift to my demo now, and we'll see if it's already available and provisioned. Let me just wait here for a second. So. Oh, yes, I did have to mention another thing. So in the M365 Agents Toolkit, what you can also do is just, so I click provision directly here when I saw the button, but I think I can just go ahead and click it here too. So you just go back to the extension view over here, and then you can just click on provision once more, so, in case you made any edits or in case you just wanted to, go and provision again. So that's also a possibility. We can just wait until that happens, and then ideally it will be present in my demo environment. So yep, it should be here now. So yeah, I can just maybe share my screen here. And yeah, so I have my tech expert dev that got deployed into my Copilot view. And now maybe I can also just ask it a quick prompt, and let's just see what comes out of it. So I'm just going to ask, okay, what is the new Agent 365 thing from Microsoft all about? So hopefully it uses the Microsoft Learn MCP server. We can see sometimes it is also the case that it can rely on its own knowledge, which is what it is. I think it's actually doing that right now, is actually using its own knowledge. But we can just ask it to maybe use the Microsoft Learn document MCP. Sometimes these things also take a little bit of time to actually realize the capabilities that it has. So we can just quickly ask it, can you use the Microsoft Learn tools available to you? Another way in which you can make this better is by maybe giving a better description also in the description of the agent. I showed it earlier is what I showed earlier was also that, like in the description of the instruction of the agent, it just says help the user, whereas you could say like much more defined, like, hey, your scope is this. Whenever the user asks anything about Microsoft, make sure you use your tools available and so forth. So that makes for a much better experience. And now we'll just, it has prompted us. It's told us these are the tools it has access to. And it's asked us, okay, would you like me to search? And now you can see I've asked it to search and it is using the tool. And here, this is also super nice, is that, it's asking us, like, it's telling us what exactly the query it is and like what tool it'll be using, which is super nice. In case it's the wrong thing, you can go ahead and cancel. But for me, I think it's right. So I'll just click on confirm, and then we can wait for a response. Yep, and now it's essentially retrieved some things that it's found, because you can also see it's actually more accurate to the actual description here, and then it's given us like the output using the MCP server as well. And yeah, so that's just a quick way in which you can integrate the tool, and then really make sure that you can use it in a very practical way. And the whole setup really goes super quickly. And you could tell that you can make your agents just super functional in like a much shorter time span than maybe before. And I will just quickly explain like one more thing for you, like two more things, and then I can maybe go ahead and answer the questions in the chat as well, because I see some stuff are popping up. So the first thing is, you might also be asking why the architecture even matters. And the main thing to me is really interoperability. So you have one integration pattern, that is MCP, that works across many AI hosts and also many servers. And beyond that, it also solves a lot of practical problems. So you have integrations that become reusable instead of one-off creations that you make for some specific use case. And you also have organizations where they get clear boundaries around data access and actions. And then another thing is just that the quality of your AI really improves, because it can really you can enable it to take meaningful actions using MCP. And yeah, so in the Get Started documentation, you can see the link there, and then it also goes through into how authentication is handled. So you can actually look into that and then maybe learn a bit more about how you can do this hands-on. And yeah, I hope that's super interesting for you. And looking forward, I would really assume that MCP combined with declarative agents, REST APIs, and other extensibility options, it's a huge milestone for Copilot. So it can really standardize how integrations are built without limiting any innovation or speed of development. So if you already have an MCP server, or if you're thinking of exposing your system to AI, this might be the right moment to start building. And yeah, I think it's a super nice foundation for a much richer and much more scalable Copilot ecosystem that we can have. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you, Fiza, on that one. Really, really cool. A great storytelling, great demo. Everything worked. The live demos are always a bit of a risky, as we know. So yeah. I'm going to do a live demo as well. But really good job on the demo. And like mentioned in the chat, really good work. A lot of inspirational stuff already in here. Declarative agents, super powerful. Which reminded me, we will actually start a declarative agent series. Fiza is actually coming back here in a few weeks, if I remember correctly. And then we have other declarative agent demos also coming up for those who are interested on deep diving on those things as well. So during the spring, so a lot of agentic content coming up for sure. Now, the third demo, thank you, Arnav and Fiza already. Third demo will be done by me. I actually updated the title on the fly, but I'll explain that as we move along within the demo. So let's talk about document library toolbar and menu configuration options with SPFx and JSON. And I'm going to explain what that means in practice as we go through a few slides, live demo, and close up with some of the resources. My name is Vesa Juvonen, and let me show what we are talking. So first of all, document library, we are rolling out a new experience. This is, has been rolling out to customers starting from last year, late 2025, and now it's again rolling in 2026. So we are introducing a new change and experience within a document library. There was a blog post announcements, I think, in November in the SharePoint blog on this one, and it changes a bit about the behavior, and it also changes the look and feel a bit, and that might actually change some of the experiences from your side explicitly. For example, what are the buttons which are visible in the toolbar within that document library, and I'll come back on explaining that in a bit more detail. Now, how can we customize or configure or adjust that behavior within a toolbar? That's really the topic of today as we roll out this new experience. First of all, you can use SharePoint Framework. SharePoint Framework is the pro-code way of extending not only SharePoint, but also Microsoft Teams, and there's many options as well. But really classic example on SharePoint extensibility is that you are introducing new additional command bars and command actions, and a pro code way of doing this. So you're basically running code. What the code could do, it could pop up by for example, pop up a window, do additional things for the selected item or items. It could do whatever is needed within your code. The SPFx is a really pro code way of doing these things. So you can actually run, for example, Azure Functions. You can do Copilot APIs. You can run AI analytics on the files, whatever is your business logic. But really, SPFx gives you the power of adding those UX hooks and then executing them. One thing to notice here with SPFx, you can actually do this in a central way. So you can take advantage of tenant-wide extensions. And what it means is that from a one centralized location, you can say every single document library within my tenant. So every single one of them, regardless how many document libraries there are, will have these additional buttons in place. And we're going to do a live demo on that one today and adjust those things a bit. But again, with SPFx and tenant-wide extensions, you can target every single document library or every single list, or based on a list type, you're able to actually target additional configuration options or additional actions directly within those experiences. Really, really cool. Now, with then JSON definitions, we do have also view formatting. This is something which you can configure in a view level within a document library or a list. And among other things, you are able to configure what kind of buttons are available within that list. So I'm going to show this one in practice in a second, but again, in this document library, we only have 2 buttons visible. So what we have done here is that we have applied a view formatting in JSON format, because that's a JSON format in extensibility, to hide all of the additional buttons within a library, and that has left a one custom button and a one out-of-the-box button within the toolbar. So all of the other buttons are hidden. And so you can do this kind of a level of a configuration within a document library or within the views in the document library with JSON definitions, one way of doing things. Now, there's no, however, a centralized option to do this. And what I mean with that one, or what we mean with that one, is that with SPFx, you can push comments to every single document library, but the view formatting in JSON is basically view by view list definition. So you can only configure those one by one. You cannot say every single view within the document library across my tenant in all of these site collections should be having only these buttons. There's no centralized configuration for that, at least for now. There might be in the future. Who knows if that is something, feedback what we're getting or what the feature crew is getting. So let's have a look on this one in practice. So first of all, let me open up the document library. So I'll show you briefly, if you are not up to date on the experience, just an example site here. And let me go to a site contents or documents from the toolbar. And we are in the documents library. And you can see that this document library is using the new view of the document library. So the new and create and upload is in right side of the house. The toolbar is in here, and we can see additional buttons when I click that 3 dots. So that is the new internal code name. I think it's a generation 3 document libraries, but it is a significant change comparing to the previous version. So let's do some customizations with this. So first of all, what I've done here is a really simple SharePoint framework solution. And in that solution, I'm basically just using a baseline commandlet sample, but I've modified that a bit. So I've added a icon 64 base icons for the buttons, so we can actually more visually see them available when we integrate these to be available in the document library. It's a SPFx solution. I'm not going to deep dive what it is, how it's being built, but what I've done already in here is that I've packaged that solution, so I'm able to deploy that to my tenant. So let's actually do that so we can see how this works in practice. Of course, I would be able to use SPFx Toolkit or some other ways of doing this. I didn't need to mention that, or I can deploy that automatically. But in our case, we're going to do that manually. So I'm going to go to Manage Apps, which is my app management for all of the solutions within SPFx, built with SPFx in here. I'm going to take my solution, which is an SPPKG file, and I'm going to deploy that to the tenant. And this only obviously works if you are a tenant administrator or you have the sufficient permission to enable the solution, because otherwise it would be a security risk to be able to do this. So now it's asking for that solution. I'm going to enable this only in this site or within all of the sites, and we're going to enable that in every single site. And that means that it's immediately available across all of the sites. And because it's an SPFx solution, and in our case, we actually had an SPFx solution configuration in place, more importantly, we actually used the tenant-wide extension list, which whatever reason is using the classic way of doing things, but we can actually see that our SPFx solution with the component ID of that is available within a list type of 100. If you are a experienced SharePoint person, you remember that list type 100 is a custom list. So let's go and have a look on that. So let me go here. Let me go to a end user perspective. I will go to the lists. I will open up the time of request or event registration. Doesn't really matter. And we can actually see our command 2. And I think if we select one of these, we can actually see the command 1 and command 2. So the command 1 is only visible when whenever an item is being selected. Well, but in this case, we wanted actually that command to be available in the document library. So we did a kind of a typo here. Let's actually get that one fixed. But again, I can do that centrally as an administrator for the app. So I can actually come into this list and configure that these buttons are only available within a document library. So we're changing the list type to 101. Again, if you are a SharePoint person, you remember this by heart. If you're not, everything is documented, but 101 technically means a document library. So it's refreshing these components should be only available within document library. We would be able to also target based on a web template, but right now we're just saying every single document library within a tenant should be using this experience. I'm watching, by the way, clock. I will go 1 minute long today, but it's okay. So let's then go in here. Let me refresh. We can still see the document command 2 there, but let me actually go to now to the site contents, and then let me go to the documents. This will take a moment to refresh, but I think we should be able to see that. Oh, there it is already. There's the command 2, and it's already visible in here. And if I select an item, we should be able to see the second button available in here. But oh my God, those are hidden underneath that menu. That is not optimal. Can I actually get them visible directly in the toolbar, not by and above these things? And answer is yes, yes, you can. Now, this is where it gets a bit tricky because we're combining view formatting as in JSON and then the SPFx solution. But what we can do, and I've done it already in the customized view, is that I'm able to say and control visibility of all of the buttons within this toolbar. So in this case, what we've done is that we've gone to the view formatting, and then we have defined in the JSON, let me zoom in a bit, so we actually are able to see this better, that most of these items are actually hidden true, and that hides those actions which I don't want end users to be able to click or accidentally start using. And then the important part also here is a relatively new thing. I'm able to target that SPFx component ID. So I'm able to basically say this command, which is coming, this command 2, which is coming from that SharePoint Framework solution, unique ID, is not hidden, and it should be positioned 0. And that means that it's actually first one in the toolbar as it's actually going there. Just on the documentation, all of these are the IDs, how to target individual buttons are actually documented here. And there's also a documentation on how do you build that unique grid of pinpointing to a specific and unique SPFx button, which has been deployed within a tenant level. But that's it for the quick demo. So let's actually get back in here. So the conclusion there is that you are able to combining SPFx and JSON, you're able to control what kind of buttons are visible. For first of all, with JSON, you're able to control what kind of buttons are visible in a view level. And you within the view targeting, view formatting, you're able to also control the visibility of individual SharePoint Framework components, as in the command set extensions, and you're able to change the order of those components as well within the document library. Here's the links if you are interested on checking those out. Cool. That's it, everything for today. I do apologize, we went 50 seconds or 1 minute long. So thank you, Arnav. Thank you, Fiza. Thank you, Vesa, for the demos. Next week, we do have Victor Villen coming to talk about open source tooling or showcasing an open source tooling for creating Copilot connectors faster using a type spec. Really, really cool capability as well. And then Rashmi Mansoor is going to show introduction to Agent 365 SDK. So important thing as we're creating agents, how do we actually control them, and what are the options with Agent 365 SDK to control those agents in a tenant level. That's on 24th of February at 8 a.m. Pacific time. In the meanwhile, we obviously have other community calls this week. A lot of stuff is happening. We also have our Discord server if you're interested on engaging with customers over there. So that's a really cool option for everybody to take advantage. We do have more than 3,000 members there as well. We're always looking for feedback, super important thing. So do let us know if you like the content. If you don't like the content, your input actually defines how do we execute these calls. But that's it for today. Recording will be available within 24 hours at Microsoft Community Learning YouTube channel, and we'll push out the recordings and announcements on social media when they are available, typically in 18 hours or so. And you can always see the community calls at the AKMS Community Calls URL. This week, we also have Power Platform Community Call happening tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific time, typically 400 people live attending on that one. And then Thursday, a community demos call at 7 a.m. Pacific time. But that's it for today. Thank you everybody for joining. Have a great rest of the week. Cheers. Bye-bye.